If you own a home on Smith Lake and you've been wondering whether 2026 is the right time to sell, you're not alone. A lot of people are quietly watching the market, feeling unsure and asking themselves the same thing. Maybe you've seen headlines about the national housing market and thought, what does that really mean for a lake property like mine? Or maybe this question has been sitting in the back of your mind every time you pay for maintenance on a place that you're not even using anymore. This video is for you if you're a Smith Lake homeowner, especially if you own a waterfront property or a second home here. You don't have to be ready to sell. In fact, you might decide that keeping your home is a smarter move. This is not a sales pitch. You won't hear any pressure tactics. What you will get is clarity, honest insight into what's really happening on Smith Lake and how to think clearly about your own situation. Because selling a lake home isn't just about the market, it's about your lifestyle, your goals, and your timing. So let's get into it. Let's start by talking about what's actually driving the Smith Lake market right now, because it's not the same as what's driving the broader housing market. First, you need to understand that Smith Lake isn't a typical residential area. It's a destination. The buyers here aren't just looking for square footage and school zones, they're looking for something that fits a lifestyle. That means second homes, weekend retreats, and investment properties aimed at short-term rentals. One major factor is the shift in how people think about time and freedom. More buyers than ever are prioritizing their quality of life. They want a place to unwind, entertain family, or even work remotely with a lake view behind them. That demand hasn't disappeared. If anything, it's becoming more intentional. People aren't buying in a frenzy anymore, but serious buyers still exist. Another thing is waterfront homes don't follow the same rules as suburban neighborhoods. Inventory is always limited, and no two properties are truly alike. Your dock, your view, your lot size. Those things matter a lot more than price per square foot. It's more emotional and experience-driven purchase. And that emotional factor, it creates a different kind of buyer behavior. People aren't just comparing prices, they're asking how a home feels. They're walking through a property thinking about where the sun sets, how their kids would jump off the dock, or what it would feel like to sip coffee on the deck in the morning. That kind of connection often outweighs logic. So when national headlines talk about rising interest rates or slowing markets, remember, that's an average. It doesn't reflect the micro market of Smith Lake, where lifestyle still plays a bigger role than pure economics. Just look at what happened here during spring and summer of 2025. On Smith Lake waterfront properties, the median sold price was $815,000, while the average came in even higher, just over $933,000. Homes took about 126 days to sell on average, and sellers received around 94.7% of their list price, showing that well-presented homes are still commanding strong offers, even if they're sitting a little longer. The average price drop from original listings was around $59,000, or just over 6%, meaning that pricing strategy is more important than ever. Even pricing can get tricky. A lake home that looks overpriced on paper might still sell quickly if it checks all the boxes emotionally. Meanwhile, a good deal that's poorly presented or in the wrong spot might sit for months. It's not always about comps, it's about context. Also, because Smith Lake is a second home market, buyer motivation can be different. Some buyers are looking to diversify their assets or create a getaway spot without fully relocating. Others are timing life events, retirement, kids leaving for college, or building legacy properties for their families. Plus, seasonal patterns matter here more than in typical markets. Spring and early summer often bring a wave of interest as buyers picture their best lake life unfolding over the coming months. The market breathes differently around the lake. All of this means one thing. If you're trying to understand the market, you can't just look at national trends. You have to look at what's happening on the water. And the water, Smith Lake, has a rhythm of its own. Now let's talk about when it does make sense to sell your Smith Lake home in 2026. And it's not a one-size-fits-all answer. It really comes down to your season of life, your priorities, and how your lake home fits into that picture. For many homeowners, the decision starts with lifestyle. Maybe your kids are grown and the house doesn't get used the same way anymore. Maybe travel is more of a priority for you now. Or maybe the maintenance and care that once felt worth it has just become more of a burden than a joy. Even weekend visits can feel more like a to-do list than a break if the property's starting to demand more attention than what you really want to give. There are also financial reasons that make selling a smart move. If you've built substantial equity over the years, 2026 could be a strong time to unlock it. Based on last year's number, even with longer days on market, waterfront homes on Smith Lake still commanded an average sold price of $930,000. That's significant return for many homeowners. And it shows that well-positioned properties still move when priced right. With the average seller still earning nearly 95% of their list price, it means that buyers are showing up, especially when the home tells the right story. Selling might also make sense if you're just not using the home as much anymore. Maybe it started as a weekend getaway, but now it sits empty more often than not. And during those quiet months, you're still paying taxes, utilities, and maintenance. If you find yourself feeling more guilty than excited about your lake home, that's a sign it may be time to pass the keys to someone else who will enjoy it. Downsizing is another common motivator. Some sellers are looking to simplify. Smaller space, less upkeep, lower property taxes, or even a home closer to the grandkids or medical care. Selling a larger lakefront home can open up the door to those next chapters. There are also life transitions that prompt the right kind of timing. Maybe retirement is around the corner, or you're considering shifting your real estate investments. Some sellers use the equity from their Smith Lake home to help fund a vacation property closer to where their lifestyle is heading now, maybe in the mountains or near a golf course or just closer to family. Others are thinking about legacy and passing values on to their kids while they can. And here's one that's easily overlooked. Sometimes selling makes sense simply because you're ready. You've done the lake life, you've made the memories, and now you're curious about what's next. That's a valid reason, and one that deserves just as much clarity as any financial factor. The important thing is this: selling doesn't have to mean walking away from something. Sometimes it's about moving towards something better aligned with your life right now. If one of those situations sounds familiar, it may be time to at least explore your options. Selling in 2026 can work, not because the market is perfect, but because the move is right for you. Now let's talk about when it might not be the right time to sell your home on Smith Lake. Because sometimes waiting or holding is the smarter move. The first situation is when you're emotionally attached to a number that no longer reflects reality. Maybe you saw what your neighbors sold for in 2021 or 2022 and thought, that's what mine's worth too. But market shifts. And the reality today is that pricing has leveled, even softened, compared to those peaks. Sellers in 2025, on average, saw a price drop around 6% from their original asking price. That's not a crash, but it's a sign that expectations have to be grounded. If you're thinking, I'll sell, but only if I can get X, it might be better to wait. Pricing is a strategy, not a wish list. If you're not open to market-based pricing, you may end up very frustrated. You'll sit longer on the market, make repeated price reductions, and ultimately net less, or not sell at all. Selling only works when there's alignment between what the market will bear and what you're willing to accept. Another reason to hold off: you're not ready for the prep. Lake homes aren't just sold, they're shown. And presentation matters. If you're not in a position to clean, stage, update, or even declutter the property for photos and showings, it can hurt your outcomes significantly. Buyers are visual, and competition has increased. Your home needs to stand out, not just show up. It also may not be the right time if selling would put you in a worse financial or lifestyle position. If you don't really need to sell, if you're comfortable with the cost, still using the property, and don't have a clear next move, there's no pressure. You're allowed to wait. Sometimes peace of mind is worth more than a quick transition. And then there's timing. If you're planning a future sale, maybe next year or after one more summer with a family, that's valid too. Planning ahead is smart. You don't have to force the market to work for you today if it's not aligned with your goals yet. This kind of clarity is rare in real estate, but it matters. You should only sell when it truly makes sense for you. If that's not right now, that's okay. The right time will come. Before you decide whether to sell your Smith Lake home, there are a few critical things you need to understand because success isn't just about the market. It's about how you enter it. Let's start with pricing. One of the biggest myths we see is the belief that lakefront equals premium, no matter what. But the truth is, not all lakefront homes are equal. Some sell quickly, others sit for months. Why? Because price alone doesn't determine value, perception does. Location, view, lot shape, water depth, condition, style, even the walk to the dock. All of those things play into how buyers assess worth. And based on recent data from spring and summer of 2025, we know this. Waterfront homes sold on Smith Lake on average for about $933,000, but they also took roughly 126 days to sell. That tells us that buyers are still willing to pay for the right property, but they're taking their time. They're comparing, they're being selective. If your pricing doesn't reflect the full picture of what your home offers or lacks, it could get overlooked. The key takeaway, pricing needs to be rooted in the reality of today's buyer behavior, not yesterday's market highs. On average, sellers saw a 6% drop from their original list price in 2025. That doesn't mean homes aren't selling. It means the starting price needs to be carefully considered, not emotionally driven. That's why preparation matters so much in this market. You can't assume that buyers will see the potential. They respond to homes that feel move-in ready, well-maintained, and visually compelling. This doesn't mean that you need to fully renovate, but it does mean thoughtful improvements and preparation can change your entire outcome. A fresh coat of paint, power washed exterior, clear lake views from the windows, small efforts can have a big return. It also helps to understand where your home fits. Are you on deep water? Do you have an easy slope to the dock? Is your home newer construction or does it have a cabin vibe? Is it well suited for year-round living or more of a summer escape? These details affect everything, not just price, but time on market, buyer interest, and even how you should market it. This is where sellers sometimes get stuck. They assume their home should perform like another that they saw online, but unless that home matched yours in location, features, and feel, it's not a fair comparison. No two lake homes are identical, and buyers are tuned in to the nuances. What's important now is clarity. If you're thinking about selling, the smartest moves is to understand your position in the market, not just broadly, but specifically. Because the goal isn't to chase a number, it's to build a strategy that actually works for your home, your goals, and this lake. Understanding that before you list can save you time, money, and lots of stress. So what's the takeaway? It's simple. There is no universal answer to, should I sell my Smith Lake home in 2026? It depends entirely on your goals, your lifestyle, and your specific property. The market isn't bad, but it is thoughtful. Buyers are moving with more intention. They're not rushing, but they are still out there, ready to act when the right home comes along at the right price. The truth is, selling a home on Smith Lake is not about catching a perfect wave in the market. It's about building the right plan around your home, your timing, and your next chapter, not chasing someone else's. And that kind of clarity, it's empowering. It gives you control over the process and helps you make decisions based on facts, not fear. So if you've even considered a sale, step one isn't to list, it's to get informed. Know your options, know your position, know the pros and cons of your specific property. because the more clearly you see your situation, the better your outcome will be. And whether that leads to a sale this year or simply peace of mind, it's a win either way. If you're thinking about selling your home on Smith Lake and want real clarity around what your property could do in this market, I'm happy to help. This isn't about pressure or urgency, it's about making smart, informed decisions. I'll walk you through the unique situation, your home's position in the market, and give you honest feedback, whether it leads to a sale or not. You can find my contact information below and feel free to reach out anytime. I'd love to be a resource for you.